Now look at this picture carefully. Does it look like Haile Selassie is happy to be in the same room with this guy? Do they look like they're friends? So in the story Star Witness, approximately 20 years ago, the son of the Most High, whom was born on Ethiopian Christmas Day, January 7th, or Tasus 29 in Ethiopia, said that Clinton, Giuliani, and the Pope are all going to die within the same week. And he's on Ethiopian timing. So his week is from Segno to Ehud. In other words, from Monday to Sunday. Because Sunday, also known as Ehud, is the Sabbath day of the week in Ethiopia. In other words, is the seventh day of the week. It was Rome who changed it by changing last to first, by making Sunday the first day on their calendar. Yet still, Ethiopia has the oldest calendar. That's why people, when asked what they did this weekend, they will say what they did on Sunday, even though Sunday is the first day on the Roman calendar. Well, anyway, let's read. Not unto us, O Lord, not unto us, but unto thy name give glory, for thy mercy and for thy truth's sake. Wherefore should the heathen say, where now is their God? But our God is in the heavens. In other words, the heathens are saying that their God is in the heavens. That's why you can't hear him speak, talk, walk, anything. So he have done whatsoever he pleaseth. Their idols of silver and gold, the work of men's hands. They have mouths, but they speak not. Eyes have they, but they see not. They have ears, but they hear not. Noses have they, but they smell not. They have hands, but they handle not. Feet have they, but they walk not. Neither speak they through their throat. They that make them are like unto them. So is everyone that trusts in them. O Israel, trust in the Lord. He is their help and their shield. In other words, Haile Selassie I is the living God who became king and said he will hide his face from a wicked generation. It's not somebody in heaven who can't speak to you that has a whole bunch of statues around. So let's watch.
He became governor of the province. In 1928, he led the troops that killed Empress Zoditu's husband, who was not of royal blood, and became regent. He became emperor on November 2nd, 1930, and was crowned Haile Selassie I, King of Kings, King of Zion, conquering lion of the seed of Judah, power of the Trinity.
Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, God himself as himself. In other words, the story has been changed. So who has been changing of the story? And don't forget, Roman Catholicism is based off of Judaism. So if you follow Roman Catholicism, then you're following
Jewish roots and Jewishness, and I wanted to know what it is that Judaism is about. What does Judaism believe? So I started to study their writings, and their writings include Talmud, Zohar, Kabbalah, Shulchan Aruch, which is their Jewish law, or it's called Halakha. And I started to expound on, listen to a lot of teachings by rabbi. I would open up a lot of videos that Chabad rabbi would specifically teach on halakha and on Talmud and explain certain things. And I started to see that there is a huge discrepancy between Christianity and Judaism, that Christianity has absolutely nothing to do with Judaism. Judeo-Christianity, as often as referred to, is oxymoron statement. It's diametrically opposed. And I started to see that basically they actually are the enemies of Christianity.
Don't forget, the Ethiopian original tongues was written before the Talmud and the Torah and the Quran. So let's watch. First book of Maccabees, or in the Ethiopian Bible, would be the first book of Maccabean. So after Alexander the Macedonian defeated Darius, king of the Persians, and the Medes, he reigned in his stead. In other words, the king of Greece became king of Iran and Iraq and Syria. So he created many wars, and he divided his kingdom among his servants after he died. So his kingdom included Rome, Jerusalem, and Egypt also. Therefore, they try to change the story. So let's watch what they did in Ethiopia.
You keep them brainwashed. Still we fear not. From your ways we depart.
So see what they did in 1974? In 1974, they kept quiet when there was a coup d'etat against the emperor himself. Don't forget it, the emperor didn't like their Bible because their Bible was infiltrated by Rome. As you can see today, they will claim that the Ethiopian Bible in English version has 88 books. But Haile Selassie did not like the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church 81 books. So why would he like the 88 book version? So as you can clearly see, it's important to note that the broader canon, which contains more, so the broader canon has not been printed in Ethiopia since the beginning of the 20th century. The Haile Selassie version of the Bible, which was published in 1962, contains the narrower canon. In other words, he changed what the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church was doing. He didn't like the fact that they added in more books. It says, woe unto those that add or take away from the word. And as you could clearly see, the Ethiopian Bible, Amharic version, was translated from Ge'ez. Why? Because the original Bible was not written in Hebrew or in Greek. It was written in Ge'ez. Ethiopia has the oldest version. And total of his books is 72 books, not 81, not 88. So look what it tells you about Jesus. Jesus was born in the spring. Therefore, Jesus was not born on any Christmas day. And as you can clearly see in the Ethiopian Bible, Rome infiltrated by adding in their stories. So in the Haile Selassie version of the Bible, you will not find the first epistle of Clement to the Corinthians written in it. So they use that as one of the books within the 88 book version to go along with other books that are not in his version of the Bible. So as you can clearly see, they don't know when Jesus was born. But they know one thing. They know he's not born on Christmas Day. So some will say he's born in spring. Some will say he's born in April. Some will say he's born in September. In other words, God says he has 87 Bible verses about bringing people out, bringing Israel out of Egypt. So you cannot be down with God talking about Egypt. And well, ancient Egypt said this and the Hebrews said that. Nah. And just know this, the oldest synagogue in the world was built in Egypt in around 882. And it's called the Ben Ezra Synagogue. So the Ben Ezra Synagogue is the oldest synagogue in the world and also the longest serving. A synagogue has stood here since the 9th century. So it wasn't built 2,024 years ago or 25 years ago. In other words, Jesus was not a rabbi 2,000 years ago. He was never a rabbi. So look what it says. The first pope is the Pope of Alexandria. So not only does Egypt have the oldest synagogue, they also have the person of the first pope. The title of pope is a Greek name. So as I said, approximately 20 years ago, nonchalantly, the king's son said that Clinton, Giuliani, and the Pope are all going to die within the same week. And if you don't know, there are currently 4 popes in the world. They have the black pope, the white pope, the gray pope, and they also have Pope Tawadros II, who is the 118th pope of Alexandria. And if you don't know, they were given the first title of pope. In other words, the first pope is Alexander of Pope of Alexandria. In other words, Greek. Remember, Greek control Egypt also. So follow Jah, not man.
Fire go leave not a ash. From we side the